You're watching ASOTUCon 2024, presented in collaboration with Reynolds and Gubagoo.
We pulled in someone unexpected. You didn't even know you were getting him. We got Bob's Hollinshead on the stage. If you don't know him, you're crazy. We got Brian Kramer. We got Joel Bassam. My name is Kyle. This is my first session where I have no notes in front of me because
freestyle,
full-on freestyle. I'm getting crazy on the late half of the second day. All right. So Brian gave me the title of this Fireside chat, and this room has been kind of like mini keynotes before this, but he said, I want to have a conversation because of the conversations that he's been having with Joel, and then bringing Bob into this, I think is going to be really good. So help me out. If you guys have questions, hit the app or just like raise your hand and tell me you want to jump in. But the title of this is Control Your Appraisal Process by Giving Up Control. And basically what we want to talk through is the democratization of the appraisal process. So Brian, I'd love for you to jump us off. Like, why this title? Why is it important to kind of think through, removing the barrier of one throat to choke as far as it comes to appraisals?
So I would say it kind of started off when I was in retail, and we were trying to figure out how to win more trades. Half of our new cars sold had a trade in, and even less of that on used car transactions. So as I started looking at it, I'm like, we need to double, triple, quadruple the amount of appraisals that we're doing. And as I was trying to figure out a way to do that, I knew that there was a ton of salespeople that were equipped, or dealership associates, to appraise vehicles. If you think about it like an hourglass, they're at the top. Or they're at the top would be inventory. And there's a ton of cars either through the virtual appraisals, service drive appraisals, all over the place. And then on the bottom is all the consumers that want all those vehicles. But the appraisal process is typically the pinch point in the middle. And there's typically only one or two people appraising all the vehicles. So I'd look in our store on a busy Saturday, sometimes we would have 10 salespeople that were just waiting in a queue for the used car manager to get freed up. Now, as they're doing that, the used car manager is not able to confirm appointments, call no-shows, tail light calls, all the things that they should be doing one-on-ones, recruiting, hiring, training, developing, promoting, and all the tasks. Because if they're appraising 20, 25 cars a day, they're out there doing all the work instead of working on the work. So in order to do that, I told everybody, hey, we've got this tool, got AccuTrade, before I worked for AccuTrade. And if we just use that number consistently, we can do it faster, at least let the salespeople do that. It seemed crazy, but so the only way you're going to control your process is by giving up control, because right now we have a process, but it's called whatever the salespeople are doing. When we tell them, no, you've got to come in, you've got to physically be here to get a number, they were just creating their own process. And at my store, it was, hey, go to CarMax, get your number, and then bring it back in and we'll match it or we'll pay you $500 more. It wasn't defined, but that's the process they created because I didn't create one for them and define it. And now, I mean, they went from appraising 300 cars to 1,200 cars a month and never buying a car at the auction after 2019.
You're going to buy a couple more when you appraise 4X.
It's right? Like sales menus. You want to get everybody to present numbers on a sales menu. Why wouldn't you do the same thing with appraisals? So, stumble onto Joel. He's a power user of the product. He's selling 10,000 cars a year and trying to figure it out. And you told me at last year's ASOTUCon, it all starts with the appraisal, and the appraisal is the gateway to the sale. So that's where the title came from.
Done a similar thing and kind of like allowing the process just to be driven by the tech, or is it fully democratized, or how are you balancing like the need to make sure that you're profitable in the business, but also knowing that you need the speed to retail?
Well, I'll push back on check. I'll push back on what you just said a little bit. The need to be profitable, I think, depends on your definition of where you're looking for profit. So for us, wholesale is not a source of profit. Having a line item in our P&L that shows a profit in wholesale is, to me, a losing proposition. That means I lost some sales because I under-allowed on trade. So the reason that we've adopted AccuTrade so much in our stores is because, and I was just showing you, it's accurate, right? It's not right or wrong. Those are different things. It's not high or low. It is an accurate representation of the value of that vehicle at the current market conditions in real time. And it's, in my opinion, the best in the market at doing that right now because it's built from a wholesaler's mindset. So for us, it democratizes the process in two key ways. And when it's in store, it takes any manager or any sales manager and potentially some sales reps and turns them into mini Bobs, right? They're people that can look at a car, know what questions to ask, accurately represent what should be asked of that car, what really matters that changes the value of that vehicle, and then put a realistic and accurate number of what that car is worth in today's market conditions in real time, very quickly. And then the other thing that it does is enable us to do that online without a customer presence. And because our main focus is not to make money wholesaling cars, but to facilitate an actual transaction, we fully enable our BDC center, which we call Sales Center, to use AccuTrade virtually, put numbers on trades, and honor that when they come in. And there's just no middleman. There's nothing in between there. There's no wholesale. Like, oh, this is, you said it before. Like, I look that customer up and down, and I know I can under-allow for that trade. Like, that, we eliminate that from our entire process. The same way we have one price, we have one trade-in process, and this is the number you're going to pay for that car. It doesn't matter if you think you can get more or you think you can pay less. That's not your responsibility. I don't want to make money on that wholesale. I want to facilitate a transaction.
Bob, you became the largest wholesaler in the world. So there's a little bit of a dichotomy to that, where this also enables like the wholesale side of the business, right? And that was a big reason for building something that can accurately understand the value of your vehicle fast. Like, where was the pain point that you saw prior to building what is now possible in our industry?
We never met.
Yeah, we never met.
So
Yeah.
you don't know our background, really.
I do a little bit. I'm asking the question facetiously.
When we first started in the wholesale business, it's a different world. There was no transparency. Everybody's clocking cars. You know. We went through the whole thing.
I had 3 wholesalers that came by every day to ask me what was on the back line.
And some survived that, and others didn't.
Right.
It just so happens I was lucky enough to be a student as we increase our value and create a reputation where dealers can use us to, basically put a number on the car. And where we're from, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, New York, Washington, et cetera, Galv's was the only book that a professional could ever dream of using. Somebody pulled a black book out, you knew they were about ready to get abused. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely.
In other words, that was like the dead gold signal in the auction lane. Somebody pulled a black book out, they're getting their head knocked off. You follow me? Okay. So as time goes on and we start to understand that all of a sudden there's email. You probably weren't born yet when email started, you follow me? But all of a sudden, we start looking, I was buying an auction, Todd Auto Auction, we start looking at the data that you actually are able to find when you're selling a couple thousand cars a week, you follow me? And when you start to accumulate that, what does that actually mean? That's where my first product was called BuyBook. Actually, it was buyfigure.com, right? Before there was .com. Before anybody said, oh, we'll do it online. You see what I'm saying? It was actually being done by a fax machine. So when people actually start to understand, they don't have to call Bob to get a number on a car, no matter where you're at. I couldn't care less where you are. If you ain't a liar, I'm a buyer. Put the information in, we're gonna do it, right? That led us to BuyBook Technologies, which turned out to be the trade and marketplace. So in other words, we partnered with Cox to actually distribute that, right?
Yep.
So that's the forerunner of Kelly Instant Cash Offer. I sold, that's Kelly Instant Cash Offer. So that was our first foray into creating a evaluation tool, sight unseen. Not Carvana, not CarMax, long before they popped up, you understand? We were putting 100,000 appraisals out with a check behind them, by the way, not like an opinion, right? That's actually how this whole mess started. I sold to Cox. That's still the exact same product I gave them. It's never changed, Kelly Instant Cash Offer. And in my 2-year non-compete, we're not a non-compete in Canada. So we actually are the only relevant appraisal process in Canada today, AccuTrade, you follow me? But I had the time to build it there, so when we came back across the border after the non-compete is up, we turned it into not just a number that's guaranteed, we turned it into technology that actually discovers the pedigree of a VIN, the longitudinal pedigree of a VIN. You understand that? In other words, VIN never changes, but the condition does. Options don't change, but the miles do. You understand? The wreck does. Does a wreck matter in the value of a car or not? You understand what I'm saying? So all of the items that didn't mean anything, now all of a sudden you can do it by VIN decoding a car. Oh, more importantly, the options on a car. Go to anybody's trade-in tool. Go to anybody's CR. The options aren't there. the value-related options aren't there. I don't need to know if it's got a power rear mirror window defroster. I ain't changing the value of the car. You understand that?
That one better be there.
23-inch wheels and eight moonroofs and 4 navigations, that definitely changed the value.
Absolutely.
You dig what I'm saying? And a wreck on that particular car makes a big difference depending on what it is or not. In other words, a buy here, pay here car, Carfax don't mean nothing because they ain't buying a car, they're buying a payment. You see what I'm saying? Ain't got nothing to do with the Carfax, that don't mean nothing. But when you get to a car where it actually does mean something because a history professor's getting ready to buy that Subaru, make no mistake, that got something to do with it. So what gives me the chills is when true professionals, second generation professionals, actually get the benefit.
That scale.
That scale, yeah.
Well, not just that scale, that truly understand the pedigree of the product that reveals the pedigree of a vehicle.
I love your pedigree of the VIN. It's like, you know, the way you term it is a lot different than what our industry historically has said. Is like because we go in historically trying to find the least possible value that we can place on a car in order to get it.
Depending on the pedigree of the dealer. See, that's a demographic thing.
Yeah.
Inner city is not the same thing as somebody in the mountains. You dig what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're two different things. You got different customers. And for that reason, when you have a product that has to cross-sectionally be good for everybody, right? You can pluck different pieces out to exaggerate what actually is there and what's good for you. You see what I'm saying to you? It depends on the rainbow, where the dealer fits in the rainbow of dealerships. No two are similar. Even if they're in the same group, one has nothing to do with the other.
Yep.
You see, a Kia dealer ain't never going to be an Audi dealer, and their customers are never going to be Audi customers. Therefore, when you're doing an appraisal tool that actually is based on, as our friend said, the actual cash value of the car in the open market today, where some silly person really will write a check. Oh yeah, but you don't write that many checks. No, but we gave you an insurance policy 100% to know that there is a silly guy back there that will write that check, and we will come and get that bitch.
Well, and and we will come and get that. Yeah, let's go.
Just keep it real.
Here's what I love about this is because you just went through 18 things that's necessary to know about the particular pedigree of a VIN, and you have a historical knowledge based on a ton of data, whether it's your data or the knowledge within your head. And what Joel has been able to do is not just have it in his hands, but have it in a BDC rep's hands that maybe even just started that day, that can actually put a number on a car that you'll come pick up.
Yeah, but here's the other thing,
totally
my friend, not to interrupt you, but it starts to get even more interesting. So when I bought Galves, in other words, been in business for 85 years, whatever it is, you follow me, it's a book that we all use. My intention was never to use Galves. We use Galves as the fundamental basis of how we change numbers, a base number. We build up or down based on the actual characteristics of that VIN. You see that? But then we add technology. You understand?
Yep.
We add, in other words, we have, 14 billion pictures inside our system. So when you VIN decode a car, I'm going to tell you where it's been, how long it's been there, where it was sold last. If it has been what you would call like worn out because it's been in 14 different dealers' hands before it got to you, or if it's never been in the market.
Or wholesaled 5 times and not retailed.
And more importantly, if it happens to be a car that your competitor sold, you dig? Now it's an acquisition lead, isn't it? So now that car is getting appraised in the service drive, in your case, not service, but now you can see where that car came from. So now you know if you do want to become, maybe nudge yourself to obviously supersede our target trade number, to be able to pinch that as a customer that bought the car somewhere down the street from you. Do you understand? So there's nuancical pieces inside this little baby that it takes. Brian is a genius when it comes to having the patience and the let's call it the skin in the game use of the tool. This is how we fell in love. In other words, here's a guy using my tool, very similar to.
It's like heart-shaped glasses up here.
Yeah,
I can see Brian's about to fall out of his chair. He's still so happy,
Yeah,
you know?
but in other words, where a guy's really getting the full benefit. You're telling me you went to the auction and buy 80 cars a month, and now you ain't buying no cars because of our little Mickey Mouse tool? See, now you give me the chills. You see what I'm saying? Because now the only cars you got on the front line. I feel it. The only cars you got on the front line, Daddy-O, are cars that came from your neighborhood. They didn't come from Hertz, from Chicago.
But let me tell you why
see what
this
I'm
is
saying?
so.
And that's a big difference when you start talking about turn to earn. Right?
It's so important because everybody's talking about Carvana, and everybody's like, well, how did Carvana? Oh my God, they're generating $6,000 a copy. That's impossible. There's no way. And the reality of it is, it's $3,200 on the front, it's $2,400 on the back, and there's a little bit more of a used car write-up in between. Sure. But if you were just selling cars that weren't rental cars, that weren't auction cars, that weren't a car with no options, bad Carfax, high miles, everyday cars that have 80 market day supply and 100 days on market, that have an average depreciation of $1,500 to $3,000 a month. If you eliminated all those cars and you were only focused on the consumer vehicles that have NAV, they're pearl white, low miles, clean Carfax, that's how that gross happens like that.
And magically, those cars sell faster. It got nothing to do with their pedigree, does it?
Yeah, right. Somehow. So,
Well, I was going to say, the reality is, like, if anyone in this room isn't like familiar or deep in wholesale and all that stuff sounds incredibly complicated, the beauty of it is the tool makes all that nuancical, I think is what you said, like way of putting it, incredibly simplistic to the user who's actually doing it.
What's the upskill time when you think about this? Because there's people in the room that would still say, well, even with all of the technology, that's scary as all get out to give that over to someone to put a real number on the car. That's that isn't sitting behind the. I know. Everybody says it, but what's the upskill time to get someone comfortable? Well, one, like, when is the trigger moment for a general manager or a general sales manager? Start with that. When's the trigger moment when they feel comfortable? What's the aha moment? Start there. Second is. Yeah, so to start there, what's the aha moment that says, oh, duh, why haven't I done that the whole time? What was it maybe for you or for your GMs? And then second, once that happens, how do I get that to the front line? And what's the speed to the front line being able to execute that plan?
So the way that we rolled it out was we put it in the hands of our GM. Well, I mean, just for our business model is a little different than a traditional franchise model in the sense that we don't have a true GM that shares in the, there's no 10-10, there's no P&Ls per store. So a little different. They're more akin to a GSM. That being said, we ran it where all the AccuTrades were run 100% through the store with training, and the training was done with the team from AccuTrade. Then we just layered our own nuance of like, okay, this is what you actually need to pay attention to. A big issue we actually ran into was they didn't remotely comprehend what a CR number was. So you know how that part of the tool, like everyone was going in there with a 5.0. We're like, listen, 5.0 is a new car. Like there is no such thing as a 5.0 in a lane, basically, just real quick. But the other thing, so we ran all those through the same wholesale team. They basically approved the AccuTrade number for like 2 weeks. Once they earned that right to say, all right, you got this down, because we were just checking every single one of them. Now they're off of the races. Now there's no checking in. That we effectively have a wholesale department in every store because they're empowered by this tool. And it just creates that turn to number being in the customer's hand, went from being, let's say, 25 minutes, 20 minutes to 5 minutes, with the data sheet that backs it up. That's another kind of value prop thing here, that you now are no longer the bad guy. You're saying, here are all the reasons, here's the reality, here's the specifics, this is the data behind the decision we've made. And it doesn't show outwardly to the consumer these things, but internally what we see on our side is it's doing exactly what wholesalers do, which is ingesting these, what ends up being almost like an infinite number of data points to say it's not X dollars over MMR, it's not X percentage under KBB, it's not this, it's all of those things plus equals this is what the car is worth. And that's an impossible thing to teach to a GM who's not active in lanes or is appraising a car every single day. That's effectively a part-time position for most people who work in a sales tower. You can't expect them to bring the same level of expertise to a power wholesaler or someone else. So the tool enables them to become power wholesalers. I mean, that's what it boils down to. When we were demoing this product, it was a short demo. It kind of like, it was oversold. And they're like, oh, this is Bob's tool, by the way. And that was it. End of demo. Put it in our hands. Let's move forward. Okay. It turns people into little Holland's
So maybe
heads.
not everybody's Joel, and he's like, 5-second demo. Yeah, turn it on. You're going into dealerships every single day, and whether they decide to use AccuTrade or not, I think part of this is like, hey, look, you have to get the appraisal process closer to the consumer, right? Like Carvana has proven that, CarMax, everybody has proven you have to get the appraisal process closer to the consumer. Why are we so fearful of that as an industry?
Because the appraisal process is not tight physically in the store. And the people that are giving ballparks or ranges or whatever, It's because you're leaving yourself, I used to do it, a margin of error for the mistakes that happen, because you know that 100% of the time, like if we treat our used car departments like F&I departments, nobody ever goes through F&I without getting a menu, without getting an interview, without just going through every single option, objection handling. But we skip that overall as an industry, as I see it around the country, really, really bad. From a consistency standpoint. Like if I go to Paragon Honda, the power of their store is consistency. And AccuTrade gives consistency, but it also forces an active trade appraisal. I don't see enough people going out with the customer to validate what happened online. So they get risk averse online, whereas CarMax, Carvana get really aggressive online. And CarMax and Carvana, despite a lot of perception, have gotten really tight. CarMax has always been tight, but Carvana is now using an OBD scanner. They're getting a lot more tighter, and they're actually going around the car, and they're not as crazy aggressive as they once were. And I think that's everybody just kind of gives them their lunch money as soon as they come in, thinking they can't compete with them. And it's a psychological warfare game that they're winning, and that dealers need to fight back on, that can win that battle and execute at a much higher level with the right tools and equipment.
Go ahead, brother.
No, I was going to say, to answer even more specifically, because again, like from my view of when we rolled this out to our independent group was that, but it's because we're so centralized, right? When we have a franchise point, and inside of that franchise point, and I'm sure dealers in the room could feel the same thing, the used car department is just that, it's a department, right? And that department trust might not be across every department. And your used car guy puts a number on a trade and you're selling him a new car and you're like, come on, man, like give me a little bit more. Like that, even just that instance of thinking you can do better, like if that exists, then the whole thing's for naught. Like none of it matters. Like there's already internal fighting between departments about profitability of you're working your pay plan, I'm working my plan. Come on, man, don't screw me on this trade. Like, no, we're all in the same boat, rowing the same direction. At least that's what it should be fundamentally. But that's not the case in most dealerships. They're siloed departments with their own pay plans. And the other huge kicker to this thing that doesn't get talked about, that we were talking about when it comes to turning appraisals into sales, and people kind of laugh when I say this, is we look at digital retailing or modern retailing or whatever vernacular you want to use at this point as just foursquaring in a virtual environment. And I know people like smirk when I say foursquare, but yeah, it's foursquaring. It's always been foursquaring. It always will be foursquaring. It's the same thing. It always has been. Trade
the
is
price
there.
of the car, the trade, the down payment, and the payment. And that's
right.
all they want to know.
That's it. Yeah. That's all that matters. And the trade is essential to that. If that trade is siloed somewhere and doesn't exist in the exact same ecosystem with a real number on it, that you're then putting equity, positive or negative, into the same digital retailing environment to structure payments in real time with products, you're not digital retailing, right? And it's the trade is the keystone of that entire thing. Most customers will have a trade, and you need to include that in the sale. Like no one at a store is ever going to be like, yeah, the trade, put that somewhere else. We'll figure that out later. Like no, you need to know if they have positive or negative equity. So you can't even start the deal without knowing that. And if you're not, one pricing or doing appraisals online with a tool that you can trust, then you can't sell cars online. So it's like all of these are like the fundamentals of just think of the digital space as a dealership, and then you'll solve problems for that. And then you're looking for the tool that's accurate. And then it becomes, all right, how do I train a BDC agent to put a real number on a car? Then you start looking for solutions, for software solutions, or in this case, AccuTrade.
And let me give you the real answer as to why it hasn't changed. You ready? Because general managers and used car managers are professionals, and they've been around a long time, and they're getting paid a lot of money because they know how to do things.
We've done it this way for a long time.
Yeah. But as soon as you say to the general manager or the used car manager, depending on the rainbow, right, this could be assistance. I don't need assistance. I know what I'm doing. You understand? and now you got like a rockhead that all I'm trying to do is help you, Daddy-O. I'm not trying to hurt you. You see, but when they start to see where you could actually replace them, which you definitely could, but don't want to, no need to, they push back.
Is
and
the
won't
session
let it
about
happen.
finance managers right after this one so that I can talk to? Am I allowed to do?
I'm just talking about used car managers that are getting paid a lot of money. Guy making 3.5 a year. In other words, he don't want somebody else saying, "I'll price that car and you don't have to worry about it." Matter of fact, it's free. We'll do it 1,000 times a day. You see what I'm saying? You get and when a used car manager changes at a store that loves the tool, but a new guy comes and he knows how to do it because he's been around a long time and he knows what he's doing. That's when you'll get a cancellation. You follow me? They don't want to actually be in a position where they could actually not have a job, if you know what I'm saying.
And here's the other reality of it. If you don't remove that friction and you make it harder for a salesperson to go up to the desk and you get an increased effort, and it's not easy for a BDC rep or a salesperson to be able to give these values quickly and accurately, then what they do is they just kick the trade, because now they're looking at it. What benefit is there to a salesperson if they have a trade in the deal or they don't have a trade in the deal? There isn't one, unless maybe they're under allowing, but the more they under allow, the higher the risk of not winning that trade back gets. And if you want to increase the amount of appraisals, no differently than everything else, you've got to speed things up and you've got to make it more efficient, and you've got to make the ability for a salesperson or BDC rep or whoever it is, doesn't matter, to be able to, it needs to be easier than them telling the client to go to CarMax first, see what they'll give them, and then come in. Because we see across the country, 43% of new car transactions have a trade-in. 26% of used car transactions have a trade-in. So the question you got to ask yourself is, where are all these trade-ins going? If everybody has these cars, right, Coach? Where are they dropping off? Because they had them, and we see at cars.com, many of these leads begin with a lead attached to it. 2 weeks later, the lead transactions close, so we get the attribution credit, but you see that there's no trade-in when we look in the AccuTrade system. And it happens all the time, and the lead was originally submitted with that. So either, and if the customer's like, well,
Sold it to someone else or sold it online. And that's a dangerous proposition for your dealership.
Because you didn't answer their question, so they had somebody else answer it in the meantime.
Yep.
And I would say after hours is really, everybody goes, well, I'll just get Rangeman, I'll get them in, right? Because I got the best BDC on earth from here to Mars. But
David's not in here, man. You're good. It's all right.
Just get him in. Just get him in. Get him range. Actually, we did get the question. Actually, I'm going to rephrase the question. Did you really cave to David when you were in person with him about a range?
No. But in order to get the lead count up, you have to begin with actually, I'll answer the question because we just did a study on this. You start off with a range, but if you don't allow them to continue, you look at the GA4 events, if you don't allow them to get into an environment where they can get an exact value, there's an 83% bounce rate on our websites when that happens. So where are they going? CarMax, Carvana, somebody else is answering that question. And when are they answering them? The majority of them are after hours, when there isn't somebody there that can get them in, that can handle the phone call. It's at 2 a.m.
Yeah, because do you shop online for a car at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, or do you at 8 at night when you're done with work?
Always after hours.
Every time, right? Yeah, and we're just brutalizing the customer.
And everybody should look at their close rate. What's your close rate on after-hour acquisition leads or after-hour? Glenn knows as well as anybody, but when you start taking a look at that, you're getting into like a third or a quarter of what it is during store hours. If you start looking at it like that, and that's where you find the answer.
Amazing. Look, we blew through it just like that. Why don't you guys give these guys a hand? Incredible. I'm sure you have questions. They'll be available to answer. Thank you guys so much.